The COVID-19 outbreak began in December of 2019 in Wuhan, China. It quickly spread throughout the world, disrupting the regular lives of people everywhere. Elderly Americans are a large group of people greatly affected by stay-at-home orders and social distancing guidelines. Because they are older, their immune systems are weaker and more susceptible to the virus. Isolation orders essentially put a stop to all of their socializing. A lack of technological knowledge makes most COVID-friendly interactions like Zoom calls and FaceTimes nearly impossible for the older generation. In the past year, studies have shown that the fear of contracting COVID-19 was much greater in older generations, and traumatic stress symptoms such as nightmares and intrusive thoughts were more common in people over the age of 60. Social isolation, especially in this past year, has shown to be no good for the welfare of anybody. The elderly who struggle to see people when life is normal find it even more difficult, and in some cases impossible, to see people when everyone's health is at risk. The COVID-19 pandemic has seen rises in depression, fear, and anxiety in the elderly.
I'm sure that you've heard of the popular Disney movie Up. It features an elderly man who is profoundly lonely after his wife dies, and only finds healing upon meeting a gregarious young boy. Loneliness among the elderly is a significant issue, especially during and in the wake of the COVID pandemic. Loneliness not only affects the physical and mental health of people, but it even affects the very structure of the brain. I'm going to talk a little bit about how it particularly affects the brains of the elderly. A team of researchers in Berlin found that the gray matter volume of the amygdala, hippocampus, and cerebellum were smaller in elderly people who were generally lonely. These portions of the brain are especially important for cognitive processing and emotional regulation. And so, because of this, the team of researchers found that the effects of loneliness, the negative effects, were increased compared to younger people. Since the elderly are particularly susceptible to loneliness, it's important that we connect with them to help them stay the effects of brain aging by maintaining neurological plasticity and preserving neurological health.
In order to maintain overall health, different studies suggested the same treatments of coping with difficulties of the virus itself and the isolation, mental, and emotional effects of the virus. To cope with the isolation, it was suggested that the elderly maintained meaningful interactions through technology or within their household. To combat the physical effects, many of the elderly kept physically active through walks or other outside activity. One of the most suggested and effective ways to combat the mental effects of COVID is to keep a routine. According to the Hackensack Meridian Health Hospital, routines help us to create structure and feel accomplished. Keeping a routine maintains self-esteem and achieves a sense of productivity or accomplishment. Routines also let us know how we are doing, like if we're able to achieve little important tasks that make the day go along. Routines also show those around us how we are doing. Before the pandemic, if we never showed up for work or we never left our rooms, that gave cause for concern to our loved ones.
Routines and positive social interactions generally stabilize mental health. Let's hear from individual stories about COVID's effects and the journey to stay healthy.
When I interviewed my grandma, she said that one of the major causes of anxiety for her was the inconsistency of information, society, family, and her daily life. So developing and maintaining her routine helped her to feel stabilized and grounded. Keeping her routine helped her confront the many different attacks on her mental, physical, and emotional health.
Let's hear what Ian's grandparents have to say about their experiences during the pandemic.
I wouldn't say we were particularly lonely. We had each other, and we also did a lot of outdoor activities with friends, so that we were relatively safe, but still socializing to some degree.
We do have good friends our age that are physically fit, and so we've been able to play pickleball together and go hiking together and go bird watching together once a week, and that's really helped too.
What would you say was like the biggest challenge mentally for you guys?
I hadn't realized how stressed out I had felt all year long by protecting my health. Like every time I had to go to the grocery store, even during the senior hours, I felt like I was risking my life. Every time I walked in there to buy a loaf of bread or Or I'd go to the art store, dash in and buy a tube of paint and think, I could die because I'm buying a tube of paint, is it worth it?
What can we do to help our elderly neighbors and relatives get through this pandemic?
Reach out. With quarantine comes feelings of isolation, but you can still find meaningful ways to visit with others.
Virtual visits over FaceTime, Skype, and Zoom are a great way to stay connected.
It can be hard for some people to feel a personal connection over the internet or the phone.
That being said, don't make the conversation all about them. I'm sure that they want to hear about what is going on in your life.
We should also try to find ways to visit in person when it is safe.
We could go over and be outside with them and do something active, maybe some croquet or some frisbee.
Ask them if they need help with something around their house, such as changing a light bulb.
Overall, be sure to spread positivity.
There's so much negativity in the world, and if we can spread a bit of happiness, that makes everything worth it.
We have seen that the COVID-19 pandemic has adversely affected the elderly community. It is our hope that this video has enlightened and inspired you to lift those around you. Please reach out, get into a routine, make a meaningful connection, and ask what else you may do for those around you.